Hi, and welcome to FHM Podcast, that is Faith, Hope, and Meaning Podcast. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I encourage you to stay tuned until the end because even if you feel that, hey, this topic, I don't relate to it, I tell you now, if you listen, it may be a seed that will germinate and bear fruit in the fullness of time. I tell you, it affects you one way or the other, be it work, at home, and in the near future. So without a further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our guests. And of course, I will start with our very own. We have Sister Lena, who's seated right across.
Hello. I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation again.
Oh,
It's an interesting topic today.
yes, and with Brother Toby, our very own.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
And with that, I would like to first and foremost introduce the topic before I even introduce the guests because this one is quite in depth and the introduction ties in with our lovely guests. Today, we are dealing with marriage, an aspect of marriage. And marriage is a wonderful thing, and we know that it is rather attacked by the enemy, but we need wisdom for this one. So we have our special guests here to deal and tackle with this topic, which is interracial marriages, or rather intercultural marriages. So we've invited the family au pair to join us today because they have quite a journey with marriages. Not only are they part of this culture in marriage, but they have conquered so much in their journey that they are actually equipping people out there. So it is such an honor to introduce to you Mrs. Opera, Miriam Opera, and Mr. Opera, that is Philip. Welcome to FHM Podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
It is such an honor because they do counseling. And later on, we will be showing you and telling you how you can contact them because they're very amazing and they have an interesting journey. So without a further ado, we'll just dive in. Sister Lena, I'll start with you and Brother Toby. Do you feel that interracial marriages have unique challenges? If so, what could they be?
Yes, I think as every marriage has challenges, and there are always two people blending, but now you're two culture blending. So yes, I think there are specific challenges to this type of marriage, and I think one that I experienced the most is the different expectations. The different expectations towards how a marriage should look like, how a family should look like, how the life should look like. So that's really, this is also like, usually you have two people coming together with different expectations, and now you have even two cultural settings with different expectations. So yes, that's my...
Do you share the same sentiments, Brother Toby?
I think now we live in a time whereby there's a lot of changes, there's a lot of mixing together, and I think we're in a time whereby, the world has become, a global village, where, there's a lot of evolution. And now you have, people begin to, create new families, from different cultures, from different parts of the world, mixing together. And I think it brings, that opportunity to embrace, all of us as a species, it brings the need for a lot of unlearning, learning and relearning, and I think, it's beginning to even become a norm now, so you can have basically someone from China, in a relationship with someone from, from Africa, you know, you can have someone from the United States, you know, in a relationship with probably someone, you know, in India, you know. So you have that now. So you have a lot of mixing and you know, new opportunities to really learn from us as from each other as human species. So I think it's a great time. It's an exciting time, you know, to see how we can evolve and begin to challenge, you know, the things that we've known and we've grown up with, and be able to embrace, you know, what's new, you know, and to see how that evolve and how that's, you know, impacts our world. It's really amazing to see. So I think it's an exciting time. You know.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Brother Toby. You see, I'm from South Africa. I come from a background whereby we're coming from an era of apartheid. I don't know if you know about that, whereby there were racial segregation. And so I know that we are still even healing as a nation, but I believe you're from Ghana. And how has it been like for you from other nations? I mean, with us, people are still healing from the oppression and all the misconception and all that it took for people there. But what did it mean for you? Take us through your journey of how you met and what it meant to you.
Can I take that?
Should I start?
Yes, please.
I think, like Toby said, time is changing now.
Yes.
We got married 15 years ago, and I think it was still a different time, yeah. And in that time, I remember, actually he's from Kenya. He's not from Ghana, but yeah.
Yes, thank you.
East Africa. You know, and then when we got to know each other, it was in YMM, and YMM is a mission organization, and from all different cultures. And that time when white people came together, everybody was happy. But when we came together as a couple, even though we were in a Christian community, we were asked many times, are you sure that you want to be together, black and white? We were questioned many times, and I felt like even till today, of course, today it's better, I feel like there's still a difference if you have the same color as a couple or if you have two different colors. I still feel like sometimes you still have to prove more that you're married that long, especially also when we go somewhere and then we say, oh yeah, we're married for 15 years. What, you're married for 15 years? You can really see in their faces, is that even possible? So I think as time goes, and I think it gets easier, but there's still, I think in the mindset of many people, still the difference. And I don't think it will go away so fast, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think our experience was not that easy, especially in the place we were. And it was not easy to see it actually coming from our leaders, people who we trusted. It was a Christian community. But still they were questioning us. It was more like, are you sure? And at the same time, we will see other couples coming together of the same color. And everybody was praising them. Oh, it's cute, it's nice. And I was asking myself, what's the difference between us and them, you know? And during that time, I learned a lot because, like I said, it was a Christian community. My expectation was people should see things differently, not like outside there, you know? But one thing I realized is that not every animal in the water is a fish, yeah? There's some crocodiles also live in the water. There's some snakes who can go in. So I realized I don't have to expect goodness in every people in the faith community, you know, and that's just okay because they're there to challenge us, yeah. And yeah, so it was a very painful journey, involving a lot of tears and discouragement. But here we are, more than 15 years later.
More than 15 years later. That is absolutely amazing. And I thank you so much for opening up about that. What was it like for you?
I think when we met, we also met in the church community,
Yes.
and I think one of the beautiful things that that I think we also kind of blended upon was that we loved God, and we wanted to know more about God. I think I remember one of our discussions that I think really connected to, was one time after service, and we were just talking, and we talked so much about the things of God, So I think much more than, our different colors, I think that we share the same passion, for the things of God, kind of helped blend us into, that place of common ground, that we were not even seeing that we were. Because it took me a while before, because sometimes even now she still has to tell me, did you notice that person did that? That was a little bit, probably racist. Or I don't see it, because I don't see her as someone who is not the same color, And it's just to let you know that when you have this construct, it's something that's taught. It's something that people grasp. If you will look at it, we are not different. If you caught me, I'm not going to bleed blue. I'm going to bleed red.
Right.
And I think for me, it has been a guiding principle, of how it has helped me relate, with my wife. And that has been how we started, and we still sometimes I even forget that, we really grew up in different worlds, because we could talk for hours, and that's to let you know that it doesn't matter where you're from, when there's a common ground, in the minds and how you perceive the world, it makes a lot of difference, and maybe it's not the same for everyone, but I think that's the basis, and that I think that's what has helped me and helped us, ever since we met,
I think so. We were very fortunate, because when we got together, I think we got really embraced by the environment, by my family, his family, the church. There were certain people maybe who had a problem with me marrying maybe one of their brothers. I don't know if that was maybe a problem. But what I notice is when people meet me first, let's say in the work environment, and then I say, I'm married to a Nigerian, every single time is this, a Nigerian. It's like, they don't say it, but you see it in the expression. It's like, you downgrade a little bit. That's the perception they're having. And it shouldn't be like that. That's sad.
It seems that, and I would like us to dwell more, it seems like it really takes somebody knowing why they are married. And I like that you brought the aspect of God, and what does it take, really, what does it take to stand that kind of pressure? Because like you mentioned, this comes from leadership, people that you trust. This comes from family members. It's everywhere with the colleagues. What advice would you give to somebody who's saying that I'm weak? I love my husband here. I mean, marriage on its own, it has challenges with even the same culture, but what advice, and also I want to ask on this very same breath, how can society better support and promote the understanding of these marriages?
I think if you go into a marriage in general, I mean, we know marriage is not something easy, but it's made from God. And something which helped us was that we had the same faith. I think if you have different faith, it's going to be super complicated. But for us, every time we felt like we are really down, I mean, he was there. So I think the only thing I can say, it's not us, it's him. It was his grace. Sometimes you have good times. Sometimes you feel like, okay, I'm so strong today. It doesn't matter what happens. Sometimes you have days, especially we women, we feel like, oh, don't look at me, just don't talk to me. So I think it's like, it's really him. And what society can do? I think a lot. I mean, when you look at documentaries and stuff, how you talk about other countries, or what you also show in TV, about the intercultural marriages. Do you show good example or you only show bad examples? As an example about Africa, if you do a documentary about Kenya or Nigeria, do you only show the poverty or you show how the country goes up? I think there's a lot they can do. Yeah.
Yeah. Most of the time, the media portray negative things about other nations. It's a nation of bad people. For example, Middle East. I know people who are afraid of people who are coming from there because of what media is showing. But I think media should at least show the good things also about these nations. Otherwise, people will stick with that mindset of, oh, they are bad people, and parents will be afraid if their daughters or their sons are marrying people from the other side, They will feel like they are going into something very dangerous, And that's what I can say.
I think just to
Yes.
portray, what he just said, I think the media can do better in terms of what they portray. I remember my daughter was asking me something yesterday that, in Nigeria, do they wear shoes? And I was taken aback, that why would she ask something like that? Do they wear shoes? I said, of course they wear shoes, but I can imagine that probably that's what, she's been fed somewhere, either in the media or in school, that probably Africa, they don't wear shoes there, But it's to let you know that it's one thing what people are, it's another thing the perception that's portrayed on the media, And that's why sometimes, I have friends even at work, they tell me that, oh my God, it's very different experiencing me and what they've heard. They are two different things, And it's to let you know that until, you really get to know people, don't just write them off of what you've heard, of what you've, someone else said, until you have an experience, of them, and there's a saying that says, don't judge a book by its cover. It's the same thing too. I've had people tell me, oh, you're married to a Swiss. Oh my God, you're like this, you're like that. I'm like, okay, but I have to want to have my own experience, of that, and then I can make my own judgment, So my take is, don't just go by what the media is saying or by another person's experience. It's better you see things for yourself and at least give a chance, to get to know, to get to see things, for yourself, and then you can make your own judgment, I think that's one disservice that I think media has done also when it comes to interracial, marriage or intercultural relationships, Sometimes people go into the relationship with an idea that they've had, and they play out that idea and not even giving a chance to the other person to even know the other person, So I think,
Which is wonderful. As we were talking, I think a couple of days ago, Sister Lena, you mentioned something of which I would like us to really also mention here, that how even race is viewed differently, as in even maybe here in Switzerland, that it is, can you just give me that whole breakdown, because it can help somebody out there, I mean, you mentioned that here it's even,
it's not a
yes,
term.
the lines between race,
As I was wondering about about the word interracial couple, and then I was translating it interrassisches Paar in German, and we would never use that because the term race is kind of not. You don't say it. If you use that for a human, it's already racist, because genetically there's not such thing like race in humans. So it's that I was wondering, but I learned that in English actually it is a term. So here we say intercultural marriage, and was that it?
Yeah. Well, Now, in terms of this pressure, going back to the pressure that we feel, were there any misconceptions that you had now, like personally, before you decided that you are going to, any fears that you say, you know what, I can't believe I put that kind of burden upon myself. Actually, this is not bad, you know. But in terms of now, in personally, were there any fears or expectations apart from now the society and the community at large?
I think I will take that first.
Yes.
At that particular moment when I met my wife, my best friend at that time told me, you know, we were in Germany, and he said, you know, German women are not really good women, and Swiss women are worse.
See.
And now you are meeting a Swiss woman, you know. And for me, it was a time whereby I needed to decide, you know, to listen to my best friend or to
The voice inside.
you know. And for me, it was easy because not only I was in love, but Miriam and I, we had this thing that fall in love but never leave your brain behind, you know. So most of the things we did were really, really structured. For example, matters to do with sex, no sex until we get married. And we are going to involve our parents to fast for 1 week and then to tell us what they feel. And we are going to talk about finances, when to have kids, where to live. And this was the brain, you know, this was the brain we put on the table. Like, hey, we are not just going to go into this blindly. Already many people are against us, and we have to stand strong. And we need our family. For example, I had to ask her father for the hand of, how do you say that? The hand in marriage, you know. And that was just to make it easy for the side of a family to see what's coming, you know. And yeah, so.
And for you?
For me, as I grew up, I saw many bad, how do you say that? Like, I saw couples who were interracial married, and it never went well. So for myself, growing up, I always told myself, I'm never going to marry somebody from Africa. So as I came into YMM and I went to different nations, I kind of felt like I had to repent over things. And then, of course, like sometimes you say something, you will never do it, and then it happens to you. So as I got to know Philip, it was not an easy decision because I still had these experiences as I grew up. And then in this time when we were fasting 1 week, I felt like one day God was telling me, hey, Miriam, it's your decision. I'm not going to say yes or no, because I think it's how I felt like God was telling me it's my decision to do it. But if I'm going to go in, that he's going to go with me and he's going to help us through these things. And then from then on, I felt like I had peace. And actually now in these 15 years, we have learned so much, and I think it's something so beautiful. Even at that time I was afraid, I didn't take it easily, and of course all the stuff which came over these 15 years, but I would never had learned so much about other cultures and to be gracious to each other or in other ways than what we did. So I think it's really something beautiful.
That's powerful. That's a powerful testimony. What I like is that you mentioned that there were those fears because given the statistics of the marriages that you counsel, do you feel that part of the problems would come from not overcoming those fears? And maybe a certain level being in denial as well, and then somehow they still come up to the surface. Do you feel that it... Okay.
Yes, as for me, I one of the typical fear is that, okay, he's only marrying you for the passport. He's only marrying you to be able to stay. And that was a huge fear playing even long in our marriage. It took me long to overcome
Glad you mentioned
that fear, really, to really believe, okay, he's really in it for me, because of me, and not of the gain to be able to stay here.
I appreciate that you mentioned that, Sister Lena, because many other women out there would be sharing the same sentiments. And you're mentioning that it took years. It took years. Did it take a spiritual journey, or was it more the spiritual and bringing God into it, or was it more now the steps that you had to take as well physically to overcome and get to that place?
I think it took us almost a break for me to then really be convinced. Seeing him having the possibility to walk away and to move on with his life, and having all the freedom to do that, and still then deciding to stay in this marriage and to fight through things, to join me to a couples coaching course. Then, this, I think, for me, seeing, okay, he actually has the freedom to walk and he doesn't. So, this was it for me.
I think I'll just add to that also that I think what also helped me was more to I think at that point I didn't know how challenging it is, the interracial relationship or intercultural relationship was. But I think one thing that I promised her, that I said, I'm going to be the best decision you've ever made in your life. And sometimes I still remember, but it helps me to hold myself accountable, to my word, and we've had challenges, and I remember, that one of the things that still kept me going was that I gave my word and I'm going to keep it, not just because I love her, but I remember one of the things when I met her, I said, God, if you're going to bring this woman in my life, I want to know that you are with me on this journey. I want to also be accountable to you. And I think one thing that also helped me was that I surrounded myself with people that could also hold me accountable, And I'm so grateful, to have mentors that even when I was so exhausted and I had the chance to walk away, and they held me to that word that you said this, you should keep your word. Not because just, because you love her, but because you're a child of God, And that really helped me keep me in line, to surround yourself, with people who can hold you accountable, who can hold you to what you've said, to that standard, And I think that's one thing that this generation really lacks, Everybody wants to be the boss of themselves, especially when it comes to relationship. Nobody wants to be held accountable. Nobody wants to say, hey, this is not right. Everybody wants to be the Lord and judge of their relation. And I think that's one of the things, and I think that system, that structure in place of, I have someone I can talk with, who has been ahead in that journey, really helped. And she knows if we have a disagreement and we're not able to agree at all or not, she knows who to call, she knows who to talk to. If I have something that we really actually at worst, we know who to talk to, that we both submit to, someone we both respect and we're submitted to, And I think that really helps to create that environment of growth, and I think to a large extent also helps to really douse the noise and the fears that she had. Also for me too, that we create that environment whereby we are not saying, and I think this is the beautiful thing about marriage, that it helps you that even despite the fear, you keep pushing on, you keep, because it's a faith journey. Marriage is a faith journey. It's not saying without the fear. It's saying in spite of the fears. You keep pushing. And I think that has really helped.
I like the passport issue Lena brought. Many intercultural marriages tends to end after the other partner. I don't know if we had that issue. I don't think so. I got my passport. I think 9 years ago, and I don't think she had that fear of, okay, when he gets it, then it's gone. For me, I think, back to your question, I think one of the things was more getting married to a Westerner. will take me away from my mother and my family. That was one of my fears, you know. We grow up differently, you know. In our continent, we support our parents, we help our parents financially and everything. And here the system works. There is pension, there is so it's actually your parents who is leaving you something, and you know, the other way around. For me, that was my fear.
Welcome back. The topic is interracial marriages / intercultural marriages. Earlier, we were discussing how it is very important to be intentional, and how it takes sacrifices, and how we ought to be accountable. But we also want to dig deeper in those unique challenges that we face. Some may be financial, and having met and wedded, then what happens in terms of the different culture and upbringing? What does it do? What weight does it bring into your marriages? One may say that I come from Africa and this is how we do things, and in Switzerland perhaps we do things in a certain way. What adjustments? What did you need to unlearn? What sacrifices did you need to make? What stereotype or misconceptions were there around?
We did not go through this, but it's something I really see a lot in this kind of marriage, is that back home there are some cultures which a man is not supposed to cook or clean and everything. I was lucky. I have 5 sisters, yeah? And when we were growing up, I will be cooking for them. 4 are older than I, but I will be cooking for them. And I remember my friends coming in the house, you know, like, what are you doing? I'm like, I love my sisters. And so that helped me. When we got married, it was not an issue that I'm not supposed to do this or that. But I have seen many men who, we have a friend who, he just doesn't believe that men should be cooking, especially African men, you know. And this has been a very big issue in their marriage, because the wife says that she feels more loved when the husband cooks for her, but the husband say no, that is against my culture and everything, you know. And I think, like you say, that's people need just you need to create your own culture. I call it family culture.
I like that.
And one thing is that you need to have one focus. You know, it's not very easy if you married somebody who is not a Christian, if you are, because then you don't have one focus. There will be a lot of things which will be going across. But if you have one focus, then you know that you follow the truth. I always say that when you are doing something wrong, there's something in you which tells you. And I always say that right is right and wrong is wrong. And you cannot be doing wrong and feeling right about it. There is something which always tells you. And this means if you both follow the truth, you will know what you're supposed to do. It will make things easier, you know. Things like, for example, like I say, religion also, cultural things like, for example, I have a friend who they got a boy and the father is from Africa. He insists the boy has to be circumcised. The mother says, no, yeah, we don't do that. You know, these kind of small things need to be addressed before. That's why I'm saying fall in love, but never leave your brain behind. You need to put them all on the table, you know, so that when this kind of situations comes up, you are like, you go back to your notes. We talked about this. You know, we decided we are going to have 2 kids. We decided that if we cannot have kids, this is what we will do. We will adopt or not. Not like now one person says, I want to adopt, the other say, no. You've already put all these things on the table. You know, so you're just going back to the notes. This we decided, this we decided. And you don't have to follow them like blindly also. You can say, okay, at the moment, this situation allows us to, to compromise on this and that, So yeah, that's what I can say. Yeah.
I think adding on that, when we started our marriage, we knew that we needed our own culture. I cannot come in and expect Philip to behave like a Swiss man, and Philip cannot think that I behave like a Kenyan woman. So when we got married, we did a Bible school for 10 months, I think, in Switzerland, and it was really intense because in this time you read the Bible 5 times, you have to write about it, you have to study it and stuff, but it was really helping us. And also, like, we knew that, it's not just because God is saying yes to it, everything is going to be wonderful and we're just flowing in the Spirit. Nothing against that, but I think He also gave us a brain because we knew some people who were so in love, and yes, God said yes to us and everything is going to be beautiful, and 2 years later they were divorced. So it's really like, God can say yes over it, but we have to work on it. Like, we have to do our parts. And another challenge, which we also, I think we knew about it before, but I think after you're in your marriage and then you really experience this, is finances. We lived in Switzerland. We were always open if you go to another country, but till now, God didn't open the door. But living in Switzerland, I always knew I did my apprenticeship here. I studied and everything, so I might have the better job than my husband. And then his paper will also not accepted, and then maybe he has to do an apprenticeship or he has to do the driving license here, and all these things costs money. So I cannot expect my husband to be, I don't know. Of course, he can still study here, but it's like you start at zero again. And for us, we knew it, but then to go through this process of finance and everything was also, we learned a lot, But we also agreed on it that it's always our money. It's not like it's my money or it's your money, it's our money. We said yes to each other, so everything what is his is mine, and everything what I have is his. So this was always important for us.
And we never had this fight about money. And when I say never, I am serious about it. It sounds a bit like movie, but because we had discussed it, communication, we decided when to have kids. I remember when we got married, I'm an African. Normally in Africa, not always, but mostly when you get married the next year or the same year, you already have kids. And if you don't have those kids, then there are questions from your parents, from your relatives, from your friends. Hey, when is the kid coming? Is everything okay? Can she really give birth? They put all this stuff. And those questions were coming on us. Like, but my wife and I said, we are married now. We need to know each other. We need to see our fights, our loving stuff and everything. So let's do what? Let's make money and travel. And we traveled. We'll travel. Sometimes we will just wake up on a Friday morning or a Friday evening after work, and then you say, what should we do? And we would get into the car and drive 10 hours to another country. And that's just how we were, we were talking about things. And so we waited for 7 years before we had kids. And these 7 years, it's not easy. There are many stones thrown at you. Where is something wrong with me? It's always the lady, even though I had that many cases is the man. Where is Miriam? Is something wrong with Miriam? She's in Europe. She's coming from Europe, and Europeans don't like kids. So she's the one putting on you not to have kids. You are an African for sure. You want kids, but she doesn't want to. But we will hear those things, but we will not take them in our hearts. We will continue traveling and loving each other. And I remember our decisions to have kids was one day we were just driving to Germany for our friend's wedding, and Miriam was driving, I think, and then she asked me, it was either for me or for her, do you think we are ready to have a kid? That was after 7 years. And I was like, yes. Okay, let's plan for it. And then the second kid was the same. Okay, like we talked before, we're going to have another kid after this time of period. And that was easy. Communication is very, very important. Most of the time when you are in love, you don't see a lot of things. You don't see this and this and this and that. But before getting married, you need to put these topics, very important topics, on the table. After 5 years, what is our goal? Like my wife said, our plan is still to move to another country. That is our goal. It does not mean that it will happen, but it is your goal. It's not like after 10 years, then your wife wakes up and say, hey, I think we need to go and live in India. No, it's something you already had, you know. You need to plan and communicate. What are we doing? What are we doing that? Even the whole year, for example. What are we doing? This month we are traveling there, this, you know. That is very important. But if you don't have this, everything is just random, especially like back home, you're going to have a lot of problem, a lot of problem. So communication is key. And I always say communication is not the key. Good communication is the key.
I like that.
You can communicate, but you're not saying anything.
So, I'm just learning from you guys. It's amazing. Yeah, really, it's yeah. We're I think we came far, but we are still also on our journey in this relationship. And to the stereotypes, I had to laugh when you mentioned the cooking, because that's what I wanted to say. Because it was really at the beginning of our marriage, it was this expectation that I gonna cook his food and I'm gonna cook for the family. And for me, it was always like, I'm working, I'm feeding a child, you are adult, why should I have to make sure that you are eating? It's like it went really, I couldn't understand that. And now I think it's more balanced between us. And I also cook like Nigerian dishes, the ones I know, and you cook, so it's more, I feel it's more balanced. But I had to also this one with the helping also in the household. At the beginning, I always felt like when I ask him to do something, it's like I'm somehow supposed to do that as the woman. Or I felt odd. I always felt odd. Why is it always me? But then I had one beautiful moment with a coworker. She was a Swiss coworker. And she told me about her experiences with her Swiss husband. And how he was working more and she was at home, and he was always complaining about her not doing enough at home. And then they switched roles and she went to work more, and then he saw finally how much it takes to take care of kids and do the household. And then he asked her, oh, how did you even do all these things? So basically what I learned from that example is, okay, it's a man-woman thing. It's not necessarily only because he's Nigerian. I was like, okay, Swiss women with Swiss husbands, they have the same issues. So that one also liberated me and kind of changed my expectations towards him a little bit.
I think just to say something also to that, I think also what really kind of helped us, because I also feel I'm the firstborn from my family, you know, and to the best of my knowledge, my mom was always happy, you know, cooking, you know, and all of that. But we were always lost when she's not around, basically, because now we're scrambling what we're gonna eat, you know, mom's not around. So I grew up in a household whereby my mom is happy to cook, my mom is happy to do stuff. I mean, we always helped her, you know, in terms of cooking. But most of the things I learned about cooking, I learned from her. But she was always happy to do that. My sister also, I have a younger sister, you know, who also, she's happy to, you know, cook and stuff like that. And when I moved to Europe and now I got with my wife, I understood immediately that it's not possible, given how challenging the environment is, how hectic it is to work. I knew that system can't work. I knew right off the bat. So maybe because I was also young, I knew it didn't make sense to have that expectation, you know, on her. Also to expect that you go to work and then you still come back and make a say. So I knew it fell on both of us to make sure that we are not going to starve anyways, right? So I knew it has to be both our responsibility to make sure we are well fed, you know, we eat well, we eat healthy, you know. So that was kind of, I knew right on the bat that, you know, that the rationale, and I think also, I also questioned some of what in my culture, does it work? And this is why what Philip said was really important, and Miriam said that you have to design what works for you. That's unique for your marriage. Even in the finances, what works for your marriage. You cannot use a template of your culture. It's my culture it has to be, we both choose to be in this relationship. We design what works for us. We decide what works for us. And I think, you know, one of the things that have helped us, you know, is being able to see where's the middle ground. How can we make this work? So I knew right off the bat that house chores, in fact, she even wrote out the chores that I have to do, that Lucy has to do, that she has to do. So we know what we have to do. We know it's a collective responsibility, and we see it as that, So it helps us to be able to know that, hey, we get to design this, even the finances, what works for us, there's I let her have her account, I have my account, and we have, an account where we, put money together, that bills are paid and all of that, And just like you said, I also, made it clear, hey, I help my parents, sometimes I help my, my sister, these are, the expectations are communicated. I think one of the challenges is that if the expectation is not communicated, then there's a lot of assumption. And that creates a lot of problem. Because if you're assuming, you're hiding money, you're putting money somewhere, and it's not clear, that, hey, look, this money is for this. Sometimes I tell her, okay, this money I'm putting it away in this account, it's an emergency fund. I don't plan to touch it, But we both agree. She sees it, she knows that, So I think it's that thing of communicating the expectations. Once the communication is clear, it helps to really dissolve any assumption. Because where the problem is when we have assumptions about each other. When I have an assumption that, you are doing this, but once it's communicated clearly, it helps, it helps to be able to then bring together what's our goal, where are we heading, Take, for example, when we met, she wanted, a situation whereby we travel. I am happy to travel, but to the extent that she wanted, I wasn't there yet, and I think we had to communicate that, because she wanted us to travel 3 months and go 6 months. I'm like, okay, I love traveling, and I really made a lot of steps to, we travel, we do things, and it's still a wish for her, and I still say, hey, why not? If the opportunity arises that we can do that, I want to, But I think it's very important that you can communicate what's your wish, what you really desire, that there's room for everybody's wish and desire. I think one of the issues is that when you try to shut down the other person, but I think it's, yes, we put it on the table. Now, how do we make that work? I think that's very important.
And yes, can I add something? It's also what you said about creating your own culture, and then being aware that you don't have to meet the outside expectations. Mm-hmm. You have to do what works for you. And sometimes it helps, because sometimes you get like odd feelings when you, for example, when I'm in your culture, in a group of your culture, and then is subconscious, I feel I'm somehow probably not meeting the expectations of the people, maybe from the women. Maybe I should behave different. For example, I called him Toby. And somehow in his culture, that's very offensive. I should call him my hubby, my darling. Genau. And for us, it's a sign of that you're close to each other when you say the first name. So sometimes it takes time to figure out what are the expectations of the outside of each culture, to understand why you're feeling not comfortable in a situation, and then addressing it in a way of, okay, these are their expectations. That's how they do it, and we do it different. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think there was one thing we talked about during break time. Yeah, mm-hmm. It was a passport thing. Yeah, and
yes,
for me that was really hard, especially when we were traveling with my wife and kids, and then in the airport there are 2 lines, And one says European citizens, and the other one says others. And the others is always too long, And with my Kenyan passport, I had to go to the others, and I would see my wife and kids on the European ones. And for me, that really hurt me a lot. And that was actually one of the reasons I really wanted to have a Swiss passport, so that we can be in the same line. But again, it happened the same back home in Kenya. My wife will be on the other line of, outsiders. And because we're in Kenya, I'm in this line which goes fast. And I say, no, I have to do whatever I can to make sure my wife has a Kenyan passport. That one was also a sign for me to show that we are one. You know, we belong to one citizenship, which is from God, but also she belongs to my country and I belongs to her. So we fought for almost 7 years for her to get the Kenyan passport. And last year she got the Kenyan passport. She can vote and do everything. And for me, that was really important. But again, like we mentioned before, there's some people who get married for the passport. That's a big issue, you know.
wrong reason.
And there's some also, and then there's some threats. Like one partner knows that this other person, they just assume when he or she gets the passport, he's gonna or she's gonna run away from me, you know. So there's those threats like, hey, if you don't do this, I will not I will not help you get the passport or something. And there's a lot of pressure, you know, which I think they're not supposed to be. They're not supposed to be there. Or somebody getting a passport and then after 2 weeks you don't see him, you know, because that was the goal, to get the passport and then go away. And I find that very unfair. We have a lot of people we know who went through that. I find it very unfair. And I always say that it's much better if you just put it on the table and say, hey, you know what, we are getting married, but I also have my other reasons. I want to get the passport, get a good job, and then if we don't work out, you know, but not like, oh, I love you, I will never leave you no matter what. A passport is nothing, you know. And then you get the passport and after 2 weeks, you're gone, you know. And yeah, for me, I will, the other challenge for me will be, I like mentioning this, yeah, when you go to a restaurant in Switzerland and you eat and everything, and somehow when the waiter brings the bill, they always assume that my wife will pay. I don't know if it's because of a culture or they're just used to their own people. And that sometimes hurts me, you know. And then when we go back to Kenya, we go to a nice fancy restaurant, we eat, and the waiter comes. The waiter is the same blood as the same color as I. And he comes with the bill, and still he goes to Miriam, you know. So there is this thing of a white person is the you know. And for me, that hurt me. So I came up with this idea that, hey, whenever we travel, I'm a person who don't like handling money, you know. But I say whenever we travel, I am the one carrying the money. I'm the one carrying the wallet, you know. So they will come, you know, after finishing the food, they will come with the bill, and they don't look at me at all. They're looking at Miriam, oh, you know, they're paying this and that and that. And somehow Miriam tells them, okay, he's the one who is paying, you know. So normally in those situations, I don't give any tip, you know. I don't give tip at all. I always just say, I'm paying, you know. And this ones used to hurt me. But I developed something, and now they don't hurt me anymore.
About the passport, maybe.
Yes.
Also, we had the experience, we went to Afro-Pfingsten in winter tour. And then there were some Kenyans there, and then they were talking to Philip, and then one guy was asking him in Swahili, so now you have the Swiss passport, yeah? And then he said yes. And then he asked, so why are you still with her? You can leave her. And then
How brutal.
Exactly. So sometimes I think also from Kenya sometimes, yeah, some people had the expectations, oh, they're only together till he has the passport and then he will leave her. Like I think some of your friends always thought it was nothing serious. When you come to Kenya, you can still have a girlfriend or something. So I think that was also
my father relative asked me, so when are you getting married? When are you really getting married? I'm married for the last 15 years. No. When are you really getting married?
Yeah, but I think I have to say something also to this. You know, I think it also boils down to, you know, the values that you imbibe as a person. You know that, and this is why I said it's very important that when people get into, you know, intercultural relationships, I think then this is why I feel it's very important that you create that environment of openness and accountability, because I feel a lot of things thrive when people are lord over themselves. You know, when you create an environment whereby, you know, there are people you are accountable to, who hold you to a standard. I think it's difficult to see another person as a means to an end to abuse and use, and all of the things that, that have been stated, there are also things that were real fears, and some of them are still are. But I think what has helped us, is that immediately we got into the relationship, one of the things I told her, I said, look, this relationship, one, is submitted to God, but it's also is submitted to mentors, people that I respect and I hold in high esteem. And I remember that's one of the things when I was praying about a relationship in general. That was the first instruction God told me: be accountable to someone, be accountable to someone you respect, be accountable to someone you look up to. And I remember when we started, I told her, that I have someone I'm accountable to and that I respect so much, and at the initial phase of our relationship, we went through counseling with him. So a lot of things were dealt with along the way, So I can't then now get to a point whereby, okay, yeah, you get your permit or you get your passport and then you're running away, because somehow you've created an environment whereby people can hold you accountable. People can hold you to a standard. They can hold you to your word, And I think this is something that, if you want to have an environment whereby there's progressive growth, you have to make yourself accountable. Be accountable to someone, that can hold you to a high standard.
I like what you just mentioned. I'll throw it back to you because I also wanted us to look at the value, as you just mentioned, the value of counseling. You have been dealing with couples because there's still a misconception out there that when you go and hold yourself accountable, there's some weakness. There's still it's still as if it's taboo. Tell us about the value of counseling and that accountability, as he mentioned.
Yeah, I think men don't like counseling, and especially African men. They don't want their stories or their issues to be put on the table, and it is very important. Counseling is very, very important. It is something we have done and we are doing to people. It just allows you to open up, to pour everything on the table, and you need to come with this heart of wanting to learn.
Yes.
Otherwise, you will keep on, having things in you, growing, and then when they explode, then you might be in a situation whereby you cannot repair yourself anymore. So we do counseling, and we normally don't push it. Sometimes it's a bit weird to look at a couple and say, hey, you need counseling, come to us. No. We always just chill and wait, and people contact us and say, hey, we would like to talk to you about this and this and this and that. And because we have the structure already, we did the course. We've seen many people's marriages changing through that.
And talk to us about the course, please.
The cause is we are not telling you what to do or what not to do. Toby and Lena, we don't tell you what to do and what not to do. We are just showing you the ways of handling situations. One of the issues which is very big in every marriage is that people don't listen to one another. When the other one is talking, you're already preparing your answer. So sometimes even before they finish, you've already jumped. I came up with this thing, which I'm not always doing it, but I'm trying a lot. When my wife is telling me something, or when we are having a disagreement, or when she's just sharing something from work or something, when she keeps quiet, when she goes and then she stops, in my heart, I count up to 6. 1, 2, till I get to 6. Then I allow myself to say something. For her, she feels like respected. And sometimes it reaches to 3 and she continues, And I think that just shows that I was listening more than wanting to respond, you know. So I think those are issues that we are trying to put on the table to people, like, hey, it's not about you. Listen to the other person. First, just listen. Try to understand, why is she complaining? Why is she saying this? Why is she doing that? You know, first, when you understand that, you will get the right response. But if you talk about, you do that, to do that, then it doesn't go. And I always tell couples to never, I'm using the word never, but I'm always telling them there are two words you should never use. Always and never. You never clean. Is that true? No. There was one day he or she cleaned.
Yeah.
You always say that. Does she or he always say that? No. So these two words are really harsh, you know. You should talk about that situation. Yesterday you did not do this.
Yes.
It hurt me. But you always do that. You'd never do that, you know. So we are actually trying to help couples. We are giving them tools so that at the end, when they leave this place, they decide for themselves what to do and what not to do. But we are not telling them, hey, you should slap, or you should do that, or you should, no.
And also, what I love about the course that we did from Youth with a Mission was a couples coaching course where you become couples coaches, but you learn on the way a lot for yourself. This is because you were mentioning mentors. Sometimes mentors, they just tell you how are the expectations or how you should do things, or they help you a certain way. But what that course did, it helped you to find the communication to go deep in his feelings, go deep in my feelings, because somehow you don't want to, it's like Christianity. You don't want to just do what the Bible says because it says so. You want to have an internal change. You want to have an internal blending. So it's the same thing in the relationship. You don't want to just someone, for example, not to cheat because they know in the Bible it's written. You want them internally to be at the point that they don't have this desire, or also other things. So what this course really does, it helps you to understand each other deeper on the feeling level, and then also transform with over time and somehow blend over time. Because the regular mentoring where people just tell you, it can help what you said, and being accountable, but at the end you want to be accountable to God and your spouse, and not to a third person. Other?
I think the idea is also, the idea of the accountability is also that, in moments where you're weak, that, you have someone that can strengthen you. Take, for example, what I do sometimes with my mentor, Pastor Austin, in moments where I'm weak, he gives me perspective. The perspective that I wouldn't have seen. Sometimes you're in your feelings, you have a disagreement, you're not...
Blind spot.
There's a blind spot. That he can give you perspective, that what you're not seeing, he can help you see it and say, because he's not in it, you are in it. You are the one consumed by the emotions of the conflict, but he's not in it. He's seeing what you're not seeing, and sometimes you need someone who can help you see that blind spot and say, hey, I think you should consider this. I think you should consider this. You might be eliminating this side. You're not seeing this side. You're not seeing this, what she's saying here, And I think you need, and this is the part of where the mentor and where you have that environment to be able to, have perspective. Because sometimes you just need a little bit of you having perspective, and then you come to that aha moment that, okay, then it's easy to deal with the conflict, because now you are able to see what you're not seeing before, and then you are able to then, kind of reflect and also put yourself in the other person's shoes, And I think that environment is key, to be able to, if you're going to have a relationship that brings growth, I think that's very important. So that's the idea of, having a mentor. Maybe that clarifies.
And so, as I want to also mention, the environment matters. As I did it for us, that we were in a community where people believed in our relationship. Pastor Austin and A.B. Baby Joe, who believed that we have a calling on the relationship, and without them, without their prayers, we would not be here. I'm quite sure about that. Without their effort, and also people who were willing to go really, really far. Like a Pastor Austin, he went far for us. So yeah, you need people who are also like, now I understand what you mean by mentor. You need people who are willing to stand by you when it's not easy. You need the environment also supporting you. You guys had a different experience on that, but yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to say, like, I don't think I really had a mentor in that time, because the mentors I had, they never really spoke life in it. They were more critical. And then after a while, I just felt like it was not doing well. I think for you it was the same, yeah. It was not really doing well. So I think till now, I cannot really tell you that I had a mentor in all this time. I think my mentor was God, or was both of us, like, working together. Yeah.
I mean, we got advice from each other. You know, you people were lucky to have people who could pray for you. Or so. We never had that. We actually, when you got married, before you got married, when you were dating, I became very sick, you know, and I had nobody to run to, and she would make food for me, bring food in my apartment in Germany and all this stuff, you know, and she also got very sick. So we went through things which some people go through after 7 years in marriage or so, you know, all this stuff. So for us, I always say I am a man-made, you know. God for sure is behind all these things, but most of the things I do, or almost everything I do apart from God, it's not things I was told by somebody. Hey, you know what, you need to behave like this. Even my own father was not a good person, you know. So for me, I just had to sit down and I told God, please give me the wisdom. Give me the wisdom how to be a good father, how to be a good husband, you know, and all this stuff. And I think it turned up well. I wish I had people who would call me, hey, Philip, you know, do this or don't do that. And when we came to Switzerland, I was really pushing myself. I need to get a mentor. And that's actually can be very bad. So I will tell my wife I'm going to ask that person to be my mentor. We went, a couple told us clearly that, no, we don't think we can be your mentor, you know. And I had to go. And some people I met, you know, sometimes you expect your mentor to know at least more than you, you know. So I have to be honest, till now, it's only my mom, my elder sister, and my wife. I have no this one person I ran to, hey, you know what, you're my mentor, you know. And that actually pushes me to draw to God and ask him, what should I do in this situation? What should I do? Because I have nobody. I have you. I don't have a father. I don't have a mentor, but I have you. So show me what to do. And also, like, when I'm in a problem, the first person I call is my wife. When she's in a problem, the first person she called, it's me. You know, she has a much higher job than I, you know, and sometimes the world always just assume this person has a higher job, so she or he will never come to me for advice. And sometimes my wife comes to me with advice about her work, you know, and she's not only coming to me for advice, but she takes my advice, and that makes me feel so, you know, I don't belong in that category of whatever, but she took my advice and she's going to apply, you know. And when I have issues at my work with the boss or my workmates, I come to my wife, you know. I remember one day we stormed in my boss' office, not stormed in a bad way, but we went because there were some issues. I tell my wife, let's go, there's a fight, let's go together. So we go together to my boss' office and then we talk to my boss, you know. So we are really one. And I thank God for that. We need mentors, and I'm still working to get one. But I think it's not something you should be in a hurry. You know, it will come. I think it will come.
It's wonderful. As we are about to bring it to a close, an email address and details to contact them will be provided later. But I would like just briefly, what advice can you give to somebody who's entering intercultural marriage? What would you say? What would you say? Coming, I mean, also mentioning the breaking the barrier and the openness, opening to and accepting you spoke about, even offline, you spoke about the barrier that, what is this, fear can build. And one can be in a marriage for 5 years, 6 years, but not communicating well. You said you can communicate, but it's not clear enough. What advice can you give to someone to break that barrier and be able to be audible to the next person? Because it affects every other area. If there's that sort of soundproof, that barrier that you can't open your heart because of this barrier of trust and fear, insecurity. What advice can you give to somebody out there who's
When
still
you-
holding back?
When you start an intercultural marriage, or I think a marriage generally, I think you need to have the same faith. That's what I believe. If you have different faiths, it's gonna be really complicated. And you need to be open. You need to have a lot of grace because we're gonna hurt each other. We're gonna do things differently. So there has to be a lot of mercy, grace, and communication. There needs to be a good communication before you get married, that you talk about issues and not when you wake up one morning and then like all the issues are there.
I think for my side, I will talk about communication is very important. But also, and like I said, there are those two words, never and always. Those are always bringing more problems in their marriages. And don't go into this kind of marriage blindly. I mean, every marriage is not easy, but to add on interracial marriage, there are some special layers added in, you know. So you need to seek advice if possible. Look around an intercultural marriage which you see is successful. Watch them, sit with them, ask them questions. Just take yourself slow, you know, ask them questions. Hey, when you are going through this, how did you react? When you are dating, how did you decide to get married? What were the people around, you know? Just hear those stories and they will really, really, really help you. And also talk a lot about the future. Finances is very important. How many kids? And how to raise kids. You know, how will you react in situations? You know, for example, I wanted to really say this
Yes,
story.
please mention it.
Our daughter came back home sad. She doesn't talk much. And we asked her what's happening. Then she said there is this boy in school who is kind of bullying her, you know. And I say, what does he tell you? He said, apart from all the other girls, he comes to me, he's a big boy, he comes to me and says, your hair is not looking nice. Like indirectly comparing my hair with the white kids, because in the school where my daughter is, she's the only one which is different color. All the other ones are Swiss white, you know. So he said, I don't look beautiful. He said, my hair is not nice, and these things hurt me. And as a parent, I felt hurt. The mother also felt hurt. But at the same time, it's something I've been waiting for, the first approach to somebody who is mistreating my daughter. I was like, yeah, I'm going for this, you know. So after some days or weeks, we had a function in school, and I told my daughter, okay, show me, where is that boy? You know? And my daughter told me, yeah, you know, they are afraid of him, kind of. He's there. So I approached the boy. I say, hey, what's up? How are you? I'm good. I am Samira's father. Samira has been telling me that you are telling her this and this and that. And she doesn't like it. And she doesn't need your compliment. So please, don't tell her anything. In fact, just don't talk to her. Don't even go close to her. A big white boy was shaking. My intention was not to make her shake or something. But she was shaking as I will never do it again. It's okay, I will never do that. And from that point, he never did anything, you know. So this kind of stuff, how do you react, you know, in this kind of situation? I left that place feeling like, you know, mission accomplished, you know. Mission accomplished. And my father, my daughter felt like, man, I have a father who supports me, you know. So this kind of stuff, you need to really communicate. Good communication is very important. Pray together. Involve people like your pastors or your parents. That's very, it's very important. Pray together. And we got married after 6 months. I don't encourage that. Take a little bit more time to date, date and, how you see how things work, go to this person's family, the other person's family, travel if you can, that's very important, and then make a decision. Okay, now you want to get married. But don't be in this box whereby, oh, we are in love, we don't want to listen to anybody, it's our life. No.
I think, I just want to, chip in that. I remember one of our coaches, Dave and Nancy, and one of the things he said, that he says marriage is one of the things that transforms you. It's one of the life-changing things, and he said something that, about death to self, that marriage teaches you death to self. And I still feel I'm still basking in that thing. Each time I remember that, to make a marriage, and it's not even about whether it's interracial or, but marriage in general is basically death to self. It's basically marriage between two forgivers. Miriam said that it's about giving grace, and it's about giving forgiveness, it's about death to self. When you remember, hey, I have to die to my ego, I have to die to what I want, I have to die to my impulses to get my way, it helps to be able to create that place, and when two people have that mindset, it's easy to make marriage work. I remember my pastor will always say that marriage is not the problem, it's the people, in it, That is the problem. There's nothing wrong with marriage. Marriage is God's design. It's God's intent. It's God's idea. He said, but the problem is the people in it. The people come in it, and then they bring their own rules. They bring their own impulse. They bring that what they want, and it makes it what it is today. And I think if we would do it God's way, in terms of selflessness, sacrifice, allowing God to be at the center. I think it's very important. Like Miriam said, the faith is very important. Sharing the same faith, it kind of already breeds that environment. When you share the same faith, it's like having that garden. I remember, in Genesis 1, when God made, he said he created everything and it was beautiful. And I think that environment of faith, it's already important, because that's how you can take advantage of the world around you together, I think. And that's the beautiful thing there.
Yeah, I would also agree. Make sure before you get married that this is really God is going to be in it. It's your decision, but God will come in it. Then you have that support from God already on the marriage. And then as a suggestion I would give is maybe don't expect things to go miraculously well. Or be aware it's going to take time. And it's going to take work, and it's going to take time till you have maybe certain understanding of each other, maybe in an intercultural marriage, maybe a little bit more even. And also one thing that I feel sometimes also try to think also a little bit of balance between the cultures. So try to think, I know you guys do that, us is like, okay, we live, just try to figure out, okay, what is it that maybe one needs? So when someone needs the family a lot, okay, plan for that this also has time for the big family, that this has time. When I'm sometimes more, okay, I also need time, just the three of us, the small family. Also then make that possible, go on vacations, or it can be anything, can be when you come down to food, okay, maybe sometimes you have this kind of food, sometimes you have this kind of food. Just be aware that it's going to need balance and look at it. Sometimes is it okay, does this side maybe need a little bit more or this side, just
and ask your partner
how they feel.
That's true. And also a very uncomfortable question. Once in a while, ask your partner, are you happy? And then listen to the answer.
That's a big one.
Yeah. I think also, just to buttress that it takes work, and like he said, you always have to get to that point, where you have to have all those conversations, no matter how uncomfortable it might be, because I think Sometimes you might get caught up in life activities, work, raising kids, and then you neglect the relationship between both of you. I think you always have to come to that place whereby, hey, let's talk, what's going on, that kind of thing. If sometimes your partner is overwhelmed, but if there's no environment to address that, and this is where, you don't want resentment to build over time. That there's systems in place, and that's why I feel relationship in general, anyways, takes focus. You cannot just be in a relationship and then you're distracted with all the things. It takes focus. It takes effort. One of the challenging things is being in a relationship. It takes focus. You can't be distracted. It's a lifelong journey. That two people blend, together to walk in. So it takes a lot of effort,
And you're not robbing your kids when you leave them back home and go for a date.
Exactly.
Always go for a date with your partner. Leave the kids behind with their grandparents, with your neighbors, if they're good people. Go for dates. This is very important. We had said one day in a week, my wife and I, on Mondays after work, we go for a drink, for a dinner. It's very important, because some of the families, they do everything together, mother, father, and the kids. And then soon the kids are 17 or 18, and then they leave the house. And that's where the divorce, because they don't know. They look at each other. They cannot work only the two of them. They're used to the kids being around. So leave your kids behind. Go for a date. You are not robbing them their time. It is biblical. It is very helpful to leave your kids behind and make a special time for the two of you. This is something which many couples don't do. Especially some women will say, no, I cannot leave my kids behind. Or say, nay, don't feel guilty. We sometimes leave our kids behind with their grandparents and we go to another country for a weekend, and sometimes we just enjoy ourselves. We hey, when we come back, we find them safe and nice. But that's very important. You have to do things together. You have to as a family, that's very important. But together as a couple is more important.
Yeah, like there was a verse, I think some were saying, your spouse is the most important person in your life. Of course, there's first God, but after that, there's the spouse. And when you have the kids small, like you have to wake up every night 5 or 6 times, you're just tired the whole time, it's going to be different. Sometimes, or it's going to be really hard, but it's really important that your spouse is number one.
My daughter asked me once, between me and my mother, which is my wife, who do you love more? I looked at her and I said, I love your mother more. She was very sad. After some days, she came back again. Between me and my mother, who do you love more? I say, I love your mama more. She's my wife. And it has been like that. Now I think she has asked me more than 30 times. And I keep on saying, I love your mother more. And she asked me, but why? I say, girl, soon you will be 16, 15. There will be a boy out there. You will want to spend more time with him than me. And you, right now you don't get my point. But when you meet this good person, you will understand me. And I will encourage you, when you meet a good person, you should love him more than us. You should love him differently, because when you become one, come together, you become one, and that's my daughter still, once in a while, she has to ask me that,
Who do you love more? Because of time, I thank you so much for all your contributions. We are going to have to bring it to a close, but you've heard it all, that both these couples have mentioned it. You cannot do it without God, because God is the one who sees the motives. God is the one who knows your spouse even better. God is the one who directs the steps of a righteous and who is intentional about even you leaving Nigeria and being in Switzerland, and to you, Sister Lena, being able to meet your in-laws in Nigeria. God is intentional about everything. So if we make it about Him, then we get to see the bigger picture. We don't get to argue about this and that, but we know that it is God. We are accountable to God first. And we've heard it, that Scripture says it, that husband leaves family. They said it, and they become one. They said it. Build your own culture. So in unity, you are one, and it's the Holy Spirit that provides even the comfort. Because, like you said, there's disappointment, there's rejection, there are misconceptions. So all that you need, and the entire package to keep your marriage and to say that you're 15 years and still going strong, it needs God to give you that wisdom to direct your steps, whom to speak to. It takes biblical principles, humility, laying yourself down and what you know and what you think you can know, and being patient. It takes the fruit of the spirits. Everything comes together. And like we said, we cannot do it without God. And the wisdom also to build strong children that can also be able to tackle what society brings, the misconceptions and the stereotypes. So I thank you once again for watching this episode. Like I said, you may not be in an intercultural marriage, but the more you understand, the more grace you extend to others, and you can be a better person when your opportunity comes. Like I myself, I'm married to a Xhosa and South African man, but my daughter being 19, who knows what in-laws I will have. And I also needed to know and how to be better prepared. So thank you once again, family of prayer, for joining us. And like I said, the details are provided on the screen. Please do send an email and perhaps also attend the course. They are a product of their course too. Thank you so much, and remain blessed.